Hey, it's Mazzy. Welcome back. Let's talk about some of these new Rhino high fidelity audiophile releases. The question that one should ask, does punk and proto-punk deserve to be released as audiophile records? Now, audiophile is a term that people love to hate or love to love. They love them or they hate them. And there is a opinion. I kind of disagree with his opinion that if it's a shitty recording, obviously it's kind of a waste to do an audiophile mastering of it and package. Now, these two records are not shitty recordings, so let's throw that out right away. But let's talk about punk and proto-punk. Proto-punk didn't exist until punk. So it's kind of one of those after the fact terms. It's kind of like, did we call World War One until we had World War Two? No, it was the Great War. So these are the great records from 1969, the Stooges debut record, and of course, the Ramones, Road to Ruin. So there's definitely obviously a punk ethic. I mean, we know the Ramones are pioneers of the punk scene, but they probably wouldn't exist if it wasn't for bands like Iggy and the Stooges. First the Stooges here, later Iggy and the Stooges. And let's talk about these two releases. Now, I did some comparisons, and the comparisons are very limited into what I own myself. Now, obviously, here is the Obi on the Road to Ruin master tapes, cut by Kevin Gray. The initial release is 5,000 numbered pressings. Then, depending if it sells really well, they could do more. So, here is the gatefold here. They all have gatefolds. They all have photographs represented of the master tapes. There you go. Tapes there. This particular one has an essay by Ed Stasium, who was the engineer, co-producer in a way on this album. This is from 1978, and this has the hit, I Want to Be Sedated. I did a comparison, with my original. I do have an original, and these were given to me by Rhino, as was my original. My original was given to me by the Warner Brothers rep in San Francisco when I managed a record store. So I have a stamped gold copy. So this was given to me, and was given to me. So I'm comparing two freebies I had over almost a 46-year period. God, freebies 46 years ago, freebies today. This album is just not your typical punk Ramones record of 3 chords, loud, everything's pretty much fast. There's some depth to this record on several tracks and some other instrumentation, acoustic guitars. Oh my God, acoustic guitars on a Ramones album, especially when you hear a cover of Needles and Pins, that great kind of British rock from the Searchers. Needles and Pins, I saw her today. Love that song. And also a song on here called Questionally, which is on side 2, which there's a lot more depth in that. It's a slower song. It's got almost like some George Harrison slide guitar on that. And I tell you, those two tracks really stood out on the Rhino Hi-Fi, okay? So there's no clear-cut one is better than the other. Some tracks I preferred the original. There was a track that, wasn't necessarily one of my favorites or standout tracks to me, but Don't Come Close, track 3 on side 1. This version of it on my original promo copy from 1978 had more energy, was more exciting. I think overall the original is a brighter cut, which is not always good, but I know when we went back to people talking about the television debut being a brighter, more energetic, kind of not great, maybe a little screechy sound, where the Rhino was more tame and more audiophile. So people thought it wasn't the artist's intent. I don't think that's the case here. I think it really depends on the album. I think there's definitely more richness and a fuller sound on the Kevin Gray cut of the new Rhino High Fidelity. And I prefer, as I said, the songs that have more meat on them, have more other instrumentation on them, quite a bit more on the Rhino Hi-Fi. But some of those faster, punkier songs, I think is more excitement on this original promo copy stamp. Now, I don't have any other later copies to compare to, but that's kind of enough, don't you think? So I would say if you don't have a clean copy of this, I mean, I'm a fan of the Rhino Hi-Fi series. I've bought more than half of them that I own. I haven't bought them all. I've gotten a handful of promos, as you know, if you've watched this. But I'm going to still, make my opinions based on the music and the sound on my system. I think it's an excellent version. So, Obi, Ramones, Rhino High Fidelity. Now let's talk about Autophilia and Proto-Punk. The Stooges. The debut 1969 record. I do not have an original copy of this, and I frankly didn't get into the Stooges until around 1976 or 77 when the whole punk scene was happening. And of course, a lot of bands were being influenced and talking about the Stooges and Iggy Pop. And of course, I knew Iggy Pop from, I was getting his 70s records and the collaborations with David Bowie. So I went back and got those albums. And the ones I had were probably the Elektra Butterfly label albums. Unfortunately, in 1995, a partial record purge I did on vinyl to go for the CD era. I got rid of those Stooges albums, thinking that CDs are the way to go. That's what I wanted. Boy, was I wrong. But I never went back and got these original ones. So the copy I'm going to compare to, this is a 2010 Rhino pressing. Supposedly, according to Discogs, it is all analog from Analog Tapes. It has an RM. Is that Ron McMaster? I couldn't find any other RM on here. And this seems to be pressed at Rainbow, that terrible pressing plant that closed down after the Beatles stereo debacle way back in the black box. But I was okay and satisfied with this until I played it and compared it here. Now, the pressing is fine. Nothing special. The pressing of these Rhinos are exceptional. In this case, we also have the Obi that states it was cut by Kevin Gray from the original master tapes, 5,000 numbered edition. In this case, there is a lyric sheet. Did this come in the original? I don't know. You tell me. It's not in my other Rhino one. Also has a replica, obviously, of the tape boxes. And in this case, I am disappointed that they couldn't get any kind of interview with Iggy and or John Cale. I understand there was some tempestuous times during the recording of this record. But Jason Jones, the A&R producer at Rhino, does an interview here with Glenn Craig, who photographed all these wonderful photographs in the studio and around the time before and after the recording, I believe, did the cover image, these images. And it's really interesting because he was in the studio during some of this recording, and he kind of retells some of this unstructured time. And all these performers except Iggy were new to the studio and wanted to blast their amps and really didn't understand the sound of the recording and what things should sound like. And John Cale, wanted a certain sound as the producer, John Cale, obviously from the Velvet Underground. And he plays cello on one track, as I recall here. Yeah. And he produced this album. But this is a fantastic album. I mean, it's not a competition, but the Stooges' debut, hands down, for me, is a more enjoyable listen than the Ramones album. The Ramones album is fantastic. I Want to Be Sedated. Every track on that is good. But after a while, Ramones get samey. But I love all the Ramones albums. So that's a little bit of a, yin-yang thing on my part saying that. This is great because now we call it Proto-Punk, but it is a garage record. It's a psychedelic record. There's a lot of great fuzz on this record. Opening with 1969, of course. This is a great kind of straight ahead opening, kind of sets the tone on everything. And I Want to Be Your Dog, of course, is great. And We Will Fall, the 10-minute plus song, track 3 that ends the side. I mean, we're talking Elektra had this thing with their bands around this time. They always wanted to put this one long track. Look at the Doors with the end and when the music stops, when the music's over, excuse me, on that. And this is great because it's a psychedelic, mystic Eastern masterpiece. It's like a mantra, a dirge, a drone that goes on for 10 minutes. And I love it. I love drone type, psychedelia from the late 60s. I love that sound. Now, the Rhino definitely is a meteor album. I love the sound of the Rhino way over this. This 2010 copy is now a kind of a giveaway or a sell, a get rid of after this. This is a screechy version of the album. Highs aren't good, no dynamics whatsoever, and this has it. Kevin Gray did an excellent job on this. Now, again, I can't compare it to an original Elektra Red label, I guess, or a Gold label, because I don't have it. I bet you that has a great, immediate sound like this. But this is an excellent version of this. This is a wonderful cut. No Fun, Real Cool Time, and is such a beautiful song. And again, the tightness of the bass and the snap of the drums is really good. Now, you get on I Want to Be Your Dog and you hear like this intense kind of screechy guitar in the left thing. It's not great on the 2010 Rhino. It's excellent here, but it's not tamed. It's not like that bringing it down, taking away the grit of the record. Not at all. You actually hear the little, what are they, bells on the right channel there. It's just got a really nice feel to it. And I like the mix on this. Now, as I recall, this is what they released. The original mix was the mix that Iggy Pop did with Jock Holzman, the head of Elektra Records. I think John Cale did a mix that I assume was released, later someday, probably during the CD era as an extra. I don't think I've ever heard the John Cale mix, and some may prefer it, but this is, as far as I know, the mix from the original, and I quite like it a lot. So I don't know what else to say about these. These are two great releases from Rhino, and I like that they're going in different directions. Last month, I showcased those Emmylou Harris and Graham Parsons record. If you compare it to these two, you shouldn't, because it's totally different kind of music. Those are better sounding records. Those are beautifully recorded records. Graham Parsons, Grievous Angel, but especially A Luxury Liner by Emmylou Harris. And if you are anywhere near interested in that genre of country rock and Americana, those are killer records, and those are amongst my favorite. Those haven't left my ongoing, in rotation flip bin since those came out about, 6 weeks ago or so. But I love these. Highly successful. Looking forward to later in the month, the Doors set, and it'll be interesting what they do with that. So thanks for watching the Rhino High Fidelity Proto-Punk. Punk. Is it worth it? You need to listen and decide yourself, but you got my opinion on it. Mazzy loves you. Thanks a lot.